Hey everybody, Johan Magnusson here, Big Swede Barbecue, and today we're making Iberico meatballs in a pork broth. For this dish, we're going to use the Iberico 4 rib rack because it has a really good percentage of fat for this dish. So let's open up the packaging and look at that beautiful marbling. So the first thing that we want to do is trim the pork and get started on the broth. We're going to cut the bones off the 4 rib rack, and then we want to cut them into individual bones. To make the broth, you need 2 parts bones to 3 parts water. So we're going to add a few extra pork bones that we've saved up. We're going to put the pork bones in a pan, and then we want to add the water. Then we're going to place this on the stovetop on high, and just before we reach boiling, we want to add the lid. We want to set our oven to 190 degrees, and then we're going to place the pan inside. Now we want to slowly simmer this for 24 hours. The broth has now been in the oven for 24 hours, so now it's time to take the next steps in the process. We're going to remove the pan from the oven. Then we want to add some aromatics. We're using 2 carrots, 1 onion, and a couple of celery stalks. We're going to add this to the pan, and then we're going to place it back in the oven for another hour or so. Then we're going to strain the broth and remove all the bones and the aromatics. You want to place the broth back into a pan, put it on the stove, and start reduce it. In the beginning, it will foam, and you want to make sure that you remove this foam. Then we're going to reduce it until about 20% remains. Next, we're going to add another pan filled with water to the stove. We're going to bring it up to boil. Then we're going to add a bunch of Italian parsley and some green onions. We need to blanch this for about 30 seconds, and then we want to move it quickly to an ice bath to stop the cooking process. When cold, we want to place the herbs in some paper towels. Now we want to squeeze out as much water as we possibly can. Then we're going to add the herbs to a blender, add about a cup of olive oil, and then turn on high. Now we're going to mix this for about 6 to 8 minutes, and then we want to strain this through a sieve where we've added a couple of cheesecloths. And then we can set aside the green herb oil. We want to cut the Iberico pork into smaller cubes. Then we're going to place this in the freezer for about an hour. And then we want to push this through a meat grinder or a mixer. We're using our Thermomix, and we want to get a really coarse grind on this. When you have a good grind, move the Iberico meat to a bowl. We're going to finally dice a bunch of herbs. We use parsley, rosemary, thyme, and add to the mix. You also want to add 2 eggs and salt and pepper. We use our Big Swede Barbecue Badass Texas Boost. Then you want to shape this into pretty large meatballs. Then we want to set our oven to 400 degrees. And now we're going to bake them until they reach an inner temperature of about 145 to 150 degrees. About halfway through, we want to turn them over. And when ready, remove from the oven. We're going to plate this dish by adding a little bit of broth at the bottom of the bowl. Then we want to add a meatball, and for decoration, a couple of drops of the green herb oil. And then these beautiful Iberico meatballs in pork broth is ready to serve. And that is how I make Iberico meatballs with pork broth. Now, I think the only thing left to do is to try this and see what it tastes like. So let's grab a little bit of here. So rich, it's so flavorful. I really hope you try this at home. Iberico pork, the best pork in the world. Happy grilling.